okay, I'm going to be very honest because my sentiments, and I will admit my sentiments are probably the exact same as the ones of mine and Kingangi in the morning, is how the hell did the Kikuyu men get there? Like, Kamba men, we can understand. Like, there's even a common workplace thing in the Kenyan workplace where we're like,
the royal penis is clean, Your Highness.
welcome to the Breakdown Podcast, where I talk about love, sex, and relationships from a guy's perspective, as well as a bunch of other guy shit. The man on the mic is a man who might find it hard to breathe if you've got that asthma. He is also a man who may include jumping to conclusions to his cardio routine. It is none other than your tall, dark, and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. And I am here to flip the tables because we are flipping things and right when you think that it's only on one side, you realize that if you flip the tables a little bit, especially on the gender side, you realize that there's a lot of things that are very, very similar on the other. What am I talking about? I do intend on getting into that for the rest of the episode, and hopefully you'll realize, at least over the course, if not by the end of the episode, that a lot of the things that women do, guys seem to do as well. A lot of the desires, guys seem to have particularly similar ones, and that might probably shift how you look at women and or men whenever it comes to a lot of different topics where most people would assume that it kind of leans more to one side as opposed to the other. And as usual, if you agree with what it is that you heard, if you don't agree, if you have a different form of feedback, or if you want to suggest a potential topic and or guest for the podcast, then the DMs are always open. The social media links are in the description, whether it's below, above, to the side, wherever it is you find the description in your platform, my social media links will be there. Also, if you feel like that's a little too much work, you can always just listen all the way till the end and you will hear them mentioned there. But all in all, I do hope that you are enjoying what it is that you're listening to and that you listen all the way till the end. Now, with that said, I want to kick things off by talking about something that is mostly associated with women, but apparently, according to a recent study, may be more on the men's side. And what I'm talking about in this particular case is the idea of gossip. Now, for the longest time, we've always believed that gossiping has been a more female-led thing, and it's something that women do, and men don't usually engage in gossip, blah, blah, blah. And it's something that's been said and it's something that's been believed for quite a long time. But a recent study seems to say a little bit differently, because apparently it showed that men are the bigger gossipers. And it even went ahead to mention the communities in Kenya that have the top 3 gossipers as far as men are concerned. Now, this information did get to the mainstream mainly because of the radio show Maina and Kingangi in the Morning on Classic 105. And they did have quite a bit to say about it. Now, I'd have gone ahead and just let their clips play, but considering that I do have my own thoughts on it and it is particularly similar, I think I'll just read the article that I found on IG that was posted up by Mpasho, which says, and I quote, "A recent study conducted across Kenya has found that men are now the leading gossipers in the country, slightly surpassing women. The research indicates that 52% of those who engage in gossip are men, compared to 48% who are women. Among men, those from the Kamba community emerged as the most frequent gossipers, followed closely by Kikuyu men. Coastal men ranked third, rounding out the top 3 male gossipers." End quote. Now, okay, I'm gonna be very honest because my sentiments, and I will admit my sentiments are probably the exact same as the ones of mine and Kingangi in the morning, is how the hell did the Kikuyu men get there? Like, Kamba men, we can understand. Like, there's even a common workplace thing in the Kenyan workplace where we're like, of all people, the people that you should never trust with information or never try to do anything shady with is Kambas. More so Kamba men. Like, Kambas have just been known for being snitches in the workplace. And the worst culprits of them are actually Kamba men. So, if anything, I'm not that surprised. I'm actually not that surprised. So, given that now there's a statistic that says that Kamba men are the biggest gossipers, it was kind of like, okay, now this is the seal of approval that's there. Now, granted, this supposed study, I haven't really seen it myself. This is something that was just mainly a report. So of course you can question the survey and whether it was particularly real and who did it. But as far as talking about Kamba men, that one I feel like everyone would agree that this is particularly factual. Like this is kind of something that everyone knows. Coastal men, I'd probably just say people in coast in general are just known for gossiping a lot. I don't know if it's the time and the very laid back nature and the fact that they tend to be particularly social, but essentially just people from coast are known to be just proper gossipers. So that one wasn't really anything that big, and considering that men in this statistic came out as the bigger gossipers, throwing coastal men is there kind of does seem particularly okay. I can believe the coast one. Kikuyu men, on the other hand, that one seems a little bit harder to believe. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it's impossible. Like, you find that a bunch of these guys will be meeting up every single weekend and spend multiple hours together. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that these guys do or don't gossip, but if you're meeting up with the same squad of guys over beer and nyama, just discussing some shit every single weekend, of course there's gonna be gossip. Like, I don't know, maybe you could even argue that there might be a statistical possibility, but the chances that you and 5 of your boys, whenever you guys are going for drinks, aren't going to be talking about other people is a little bit hard to believe. Like, yes, you guys can have ideas on growth and shit, but you can only sustain them for so long. And these guys will meet up and chill for hours. They could basically spend even half of a day just spending time together. So it could be anywhere from like 6 to 8 hours. These guys are just chilling, sipping on drinks, having yamachoma. Of course they're gonna talk about some shit. So I do think that it can be particularly possible for Kuk men to be proper gossipers. It's just that I don't normally hear people talking about Kikuyu men like this. If you are bringing something to do with money or negotiations or dirty dealings, fine, you could argue that, but gossiping? I don't know. Maybe it's the newer batch of cute guys, but granted, I think the one thing that most people don't really get from this is that one, when it comes to gossiping, it is kind of on both genders. Like, both genders like talking about other people, whether it's people close to them or far from them, and that's really what gossiping is. Gossiping is mainly just talking about other people and the stuff that they did or supposedly did. And for the most part, like, this is something that both genders do, whether it's aspirationally or just for entertainment purposes. It is something particularly good, because you can only talk about your life so much before you sound like a douche, and you can only talk about work and philosophical shit for so long before it just drones out and becomes boring. So I can get why we'd probably have, Kukes gossiping. It's just, I find it very interesting that men are now the bigger gossipers. Granted, I'm not surprised, and the difference isn't too big because both sides have gossiped and I have sat in for both. But in between a lot of that gossip, when you actually sit down with guys will usually have a bunch of gossip, but that shit will usually not even have as much information and will mostly be about highlights, as opposed to women that usually like getting into details and shit. But anyways, with that said, with this particular information, I'm going to leave it at that and move it on to our main topic of this episode. Now, not too long ago while I was on IG, I happened to stumble across a particularly interesting clip from the IRIP podcast, or It's Related I Promise, which normally stars Jules Her, Noni Mushiri, and Sharon Mashira, where they had the artist called Charisma on there, and they were busy talking about non-sexual things that are very attractive. Now, they did talk quite a bit about the non-sexual things that men do or can do that are very attractive and makes them feel some type of way. And Charisma, being a guy, of course, had to mention one or two things. Now, I do want to let the clip play because I do feel like there is something to be spoken about there, and at least, maybe, just maybe, I can get into some non-sexual things that guys seem to like that, make women particularly attractive to us. But anyways, let me not get ahead of myself. Let me just let the clip play. So without further ado,
A non-sexual thing I find attractive about men, when they're like in a sport or in the gym and then they wipe their face with their shirt.
Sorry?
Before they even do it in movies, like very deliberately with like the slow-mo, the guys.
I'm like, guys,
like,
men,
like
continue wiping your sweat with your t-shirts.
Okay.
Some of us are enjoying that stuff.
That's so interesting. Sounds mundane, but like when a girl wants to do skincare for you.
Oh, you guys like that?
And then you finish and you sit there and you don't even know how to sit. You're like, right? Well, am I back to being a man again?
Exactly.
Or am I still a baby?
When I'm ranting about something and he's just there saying, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know? Yes. I
Okay.
do. I'm like, and then I do know.
How does a person know when it's time when it's the time
You
for
ask.
solutions
You
and
ask.
for
Do you know, I
listening?
actually have a male friend,
Yeah?
no romantic relation, but he goes, so do you want me to listen or do you want a solution?
Yeah.
Telling me I handled it. We have a dinner plan. We're there trying to figure out how do we get there. I've called the cab.
I've done the reservation.
I've done the reservation.
Yeah.
Leadership does not have to be aggressive, intimidating, or condescending.
Yeah.
There's a quiet leadership that is so sexy.
Okay. Particularly interesting points there, and particularly interesting things that were being said. Now, I'm not gonna lie. For me as a guy, I'm also on Charisma's side on this one. Like, granted, it's not like I was to agree or disagree, because like that shit is very, very spot on. Like, there's something about a babe like giving you that extra TLC, and they like will like be touching your face, and like they'll apply something and they'll be like, no, just stay still. And like that care and detail is it's such a nice thing. Like, you don't even know what to do, like you said. Like, you're just there, but yeah, it is particularly spot on actually, now that I think about it a lot more. Like, there's really nothing that you can say is like the gangster way to handle it. Like, it's just a nice feeling to be pampered as a dude. But anyways, that said, one thing that I noticed was how a lot of what was being mentioned there is stuff that is considered to be quote unquote very masculine in a sense. Now, don't get me wrong, there's things that, are a little bit more on the edgy side of like non-sexual, like the whole shirt, wiping his face and everything. Like, you could say that it looks good, but I tend to think that a lot of women that usually say that usually expect there to be abs underneath that shirt. But I'm probably reaching in that one. I guess not every single babe likes abs, but all in all, like, it is something that I have heard before. Then the listening part doesn't seem like a particularly quote unquote masculine thing, but the whole like taking charge, the whole making the reservations and being a calm leader, being a very like quietly dominant person, I feel like those are just generally just dominant quote unquote masculine things to do. And interestingly enough, the comments were basically in the same light, because it was mostly women that were just doing these comments. So a lot of them were saying things like masculine veiny hands, quiet leadership, folded shirt sleeves. Like, a lot of those I think are very typically guy related. And granted, I don't think a lot of guys actually know just how attractive having veiny hands and like folded shirt sleeves as a combo is for you as a guy. So if you wanted a wake up call to go to the gym and work out and make sure you reduce your body fat so that you have veiny hands, this is your wake up call. Go ahead, put in the effort. It will actually pay off as far as seeming attractive to women. But that said, there were a couple of interesting ones, like, having locks. But I think the nicest one that I saw here was like, having empathy and being in touch with the world, which, there's definitely room for that in some way, shape or form. But I feel like for most women, it does tend to be masculine. What I do find interesting is how it's mostly women that answer this, but not guys, which is why I liked that Charisma was there to give a couple more. And when I looked at it, I was like, okay, but is there anything non-sexual that guys like women doing? And don't get me wrong, it's very easy to get into some of the quote-unquote guy stuff that if we had a babe doing them, we'd find to be very hot. Stuff like, if a babe likes anime and let's say it's a guy who likes anime that is busy talking about this babe. But also things like if a babe is into gaming, so you guys can, play PlayStation 5 together or Xbox or just gaming in general. Like, I could get into that, but when I sat and I thought about it, I was like, I need to come up with some non-sexual but very attractive things women can do, because guys also have some of that. Not everything that we want is sexual, just saying. But there are things that will make you seem attractive to a guy, and they aren't particularly sexual. Now, don't get me wrong, it did actually take quite a bit of racking my head. Then at some point I recognized that Sharon Mashia had the thing with the shirt, and I was like, you know what, I can probably push the boundaries a little bit. So with me is a list of 5 things that women can do that are non-sexual but very attractive to men. And, just so you know, I made these with love, and yes, are they maybe a little biased to my liking of women? Maybe to a bit, but for the most part, they'll probably appeal to quite a lot of guys. Now, I am going to get into the list real quick, and I'll just explain each and every point so that you have an idea. So the first one is going to sound particularly general, but it's when a babe is thoughtful and does things for you even before you ask for them. In that, like, sometimes let's say for example, you are having a long day, or you've had a long day at work, and you're leaving work and the babe tells you, you know what, just swing by my ends, you can chill for a bit before you head home. And let's assume that this is your girlfriend or someone that you're trying to have something serious with, and you go there and they're willing to give you a massage, they've made you a nice snack for you to take. Like, that shit works wonders, by the way. Like, that is the kind of shit that you do, and then a guy asks you what it is that you want. If you ask for a Bentley, they might just go and take a loan out to buy that Bentley. But anyways, that, like, the act of being thoughtful is a very, very powerful thing that people will almost always appreciate. And this goes across the genders. Women will always talk about how they want a thoughtful person. They like a guy who's thoughtful. They want a man who's thoughtful. But now this is our chance to tell you that we also want a thoughtful babe. If you can be thoughtful as well, in that I'm thoughtful about you and you're thoughtful about me, the relationship can be so much better. Just saying. Like, it's not always about trying to make you happy. Like, you'll also need to do some shit to try and make us happy. Just saying. Now, that said, moving on to the next one. And this one is mainly if you're a thick babe. Like, if you're a thick babe, wearing a dera. Like, wearing a dera is and I say this as a man that loves thick babes. Like, that shit is so good. Like, it is so great to look at a babe in a dera. And I'm not even talking about the backless ones that babes have made like a thing. Like, that's like the fashionable diva style of it. Like, I'm talking about even just a regular dera. If you're a thick babe in a dera, in my opinion, and this could be an unpopular opinion, but it is something that I have stood on for quite a while, you look better in that than you would in lingerie, in my opinion. I would much rather a thick babe in a dera than a thick babe in lingerie. Real talk. And by the way, I can go ahead and like fight with people on this, but provided that the back is poking out a little bit so you can see through the dera and like it jiggles a little bit when she walk, that shit can do wonders to man. But anyways, that said, let me not get ahead of myself. Like I did say, it is a little bit more on the edgy side. It's not sexual per se, but it is very on the edgy side. But now, if you may or may not be particularly sure where it is that you fall, whether you're a thick babe or a petite babe or a slim babe or a slim thick babe, then this next tip is probably going to be for you. If you are a thick babe, or at least if you are a curvy babe, you don't even have to be that thick, but if you are a curvy babe wearing bodycons, and if you are a petite babe wearing a sundress, those things will do absolute wonders for you. Like, that shit is so attractive. And granted, I did stumble onto another clip where Charisma did actually speak about wearing sundresses and how they make a babe look so good. And personally, what I'll say is, if you're a very curvy babe, I would much rather you wear a bodycon so that it can show the curves. And if you wear it with confidence and you exude that confidence, that shit will absolutely make niggas go wild. But now, if you're a petite babe and you also want to look good, and maybe you feel like the bodycon might not really work for you, then go ahead and wear the sundress. Like, provided you have particularly fair skin that's very flawless and your legs look good, fuck me, a sundress will almost always look amazing on you. Like, sundresses will just look really good. And don't get me wrong, it's not like sundresses are supposed to show your booty or anything, but if you have great looking legs in general, like, a sundress almost always will make you look very attractive as a babe. Also, I don't think Charisma had mentioned, but anyways, it's not like I had that clip on this episode, but the thing with a sundress is it kind of has this way of looking cute but also very feminine in a way, such that like you do look very pretty but you also look very gorgeous. I don't know if I'm making sense. I feel like the niggas kind of get what I'm saying, but like there's a way that you can look cute and you can look very beautiful in it at the same time. Anyways, now that I can get away from the so-called edgy, a little on the sexual side, on to the next tip. Now, this one is gonna sound like it's sexual, but it's not, and it is physical touch in general. Not necessarily PDA, actually not even PDA for the most part, just physical touch. And I know it sounds like it's such a general thing and it's such a basic thing, but here's one truth that I think most women probably don't know for a fact. Most guys actually don't get as much physical touch in general. Like, there's even been running jokes on the internet where guys talk about how if a babe was to brush up on them while they're walking past each other, like, dude might probably even start orgasming right there. There's so many guys who don't get as much physical touch, mostly because, they're probably single, they don't have a babe, so they don't really get access to that. And also they don't get as much access to women or even have that level of physical touch with their homies. They tend to be so starved of it. So the moment they get some, it feels like it's such a good thing. And for the most part, like, people might think, oh, it's very sexual and it has to be. Trust me, it doesn't. Like, I'll even give you a secret. If you're ever in a car with a guy, and this is for the babes, if you're ever in a car with a guy, or even just chilling with him privately somewhere but you guys are seated, if you want that nigga to fold like an origami, you take your hand, you place your palm on the back of his neck and you start caressing it. My fucking goodness, that shit does wonders to dudes. Like, that shit is almost like kryptonite for a lot of guys, and there's very few men that'll be like, I don't like it. Like, I haven't met a guy that hasn't liked that sort of touch. And so, as far as physical touch is concerned, that isn't sexual in any way, shape, or form. Like, even you just holding the guy, like, that shit is not sexual per se. Like, it's not even sexual when you think about it. But trust me, guys actually do really love that. So, for those of y'all that think that physical touch has to be sexual, there you go. It doesn't have to be sexual, it doesn't have to be PDA, but physical touch in general, in a very nice, romantic and caring way, will almost always be attractive for a man. Then, last but not least, on tip number 5, stroke his ego. Now, this one is a very broad point, but essentially, if you tell him things that make him feel like he's more of the man than anything, that shit is almost always going to be attractive. Now, of course, there are ways that you can do it. There's places you can do it. Of course, if you decide to call him daddy when the billers come, I don't know if that would be counted as attractive. But of course, if you called him daddy elsewhere, especially in the private matters, not necessarily when you guys are having sex, but if you called him daddy there, best believe that nigga would probably fold. Like, there's so many different things that you can tell a guy, and of course I use daddy because I think that's probably like one of the more extreme ones, but there's lots of times where you'll find that a babe simply saying, but I want to do this with you because you're my man, or, you know, what would my man like for lunch? Like, things like that can stroke a guy's ego would very easily make them fold. And those are very, very attractive things for guys, because like being appreciated and being seen as the shit is just such a good thing, just generally for us as people, but especially for us as guys who, you know, people talk about how men are egotistical all the time. This is the side where I tell you that if you stroke his ego, like, you can very easily gain his favor. And so, that being said, you know, those are 5 tips on just generally being a more attractive person to a guy in a non-sexual way. But with that said, let me just conclude by saying that most men, and this may baffle quite a lot of women, but most men are very emotionally neglected or just emotionally starved in general. Like, they don't get that much emotional care, that TLC, just something that makes them feel more emotionally cared for on a day-to-day. Like, most guys are very emotionally starved and neglected today, okay? So if you can cater to him emotionally, if you can cater to him in a more emotional way, not necessarily sexually, but in a more emotional way, you can probably lock that guy down a lot faster than you would think. So if you do want to lock a guy down and, you know, the guy has the hots for you or some shit, like, one of the easiest ways to do it is just appeal to the guy in a more emotional way and try to fill him up emotionally, as opposed to just doing it sexually. And trust me, most niggas usually fold pretty quickly. Although, then again, considering that this list was compiled by me, I could be wrong as far as guys are concerned, and maybe most guys don't even want this. Or maybe they do, but in a different way. Either way, I want your thoughts on it. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at the Breaktime_podcast. On Facebook, it is at the Breaktime Podcast. On X, it is at Bagaka the D. And on Bluesky, it is at the BreaktimePod.bsky.social. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end, and I will catch you guys on the next break.
But what I believe is that if you put a pastor and a prostitute in one room, one is likely to convert the other.